Recording in progress. Okay. So we went over layer textures, went over kind of the basics of blend modes. Like I said, the two you will use the most probably are add and multiply. You can try others to see what kind of effect you get. We're going to work on adding the projection to the table in the exterior scene. So the reason I like to do that is because a lot of times people will have textures on objects already, and then you realize, you know what, I need to layer more on top of it. I either need stickers, decals, I want to add some specific wear and tear into a place that I didn't really think I would need it while I was either in substance or just laying out the scene in general. You know, maybe compositionally, you think, you know what, that water ring stain or that wine ring stain near where the glass is makes a lot of sense. And you don't necessarily want to take your texture back into substance, work on it, bring it back out. So let's fire up Maya, which I should still have running. There we go. And this scene is disposable. So let me set my project, make sure we're in the Zen garden. And let's open up our lecture 10 scene that we were working on earlier. And like I said, the reason I like to use this is because I've already got a texture on the table. I've got my wine bottle label on there now. But what I want to do is add the SAL logo to the table. All right, let me just take one more screen grab to make sure. Right, so this is going to kind of be the workflow that you would use if you've already got things in your scene that, you know, you thought were finalized or you've got textures on them. Rather than starting from scratch, let me show you how to put a layer texture into an existing network. So we know how to put a layer texture into a material. It's simple. You go base color or a base material, base part of the material. You go color, you click on it, you go to other textures, you put in a layer texture. But in the case of my table, I've already got my network in there. So let's graph this. Come on. Graph network. There we go. All right. So here, I've already got my table in. So it's really simple to insert a layer texture. You just need to know that your layer texture needs to go between the file node and the material. So to do that, in the Hypershade, you go under Create, Other Textures, and there's your layer texture. Now, if I click on layer texture here, that will throw a layer texture into my Hypershade, but it's not connected to anything. And consequently, it's not going to show up in my scene. But what I want to do is zoom in a little bit here. Oh, come on, Maya, work with me. No, wooden table. I don't want, there we go. So you notice something wigged out and it looks like I lost my layer texture. Well, my layer texture is still there. It's just hiding in my textures tab. So let me middle mouse drag it out. There we go. No, stop. No. Okay, mouse freaking out. Actually, not mouse, tablet pen freaking out. Come on, stop that. Okay, let's do that. Relax. Okay, you all better, Maya? Good. Relax. There we go. Wait, how did that get there? Wow, some bad juju here. All right, so let's try this again. Middle mouse click, drag out. Nope, middle mouse click, drag out. Middle mouse click, drag out. Come on, middle mouse click. Now middle mouse won't work. Okay. Let's not save this. I need to restart Maya. Maya's being it's being Maya, basically. All right. Make sure, take another screen grab of attendance so I don't miss anybody. All right, let's fire up Maya. After a long winter's nap, it needs to wake up now. It has eaten enough food for its hibernation in the winter. It will now feast on the tears and regrets of all of us. So is nature, so is Maya. Watch too many documentaries. Okay. Wait for everybody to start up. All right. Set project. Let's try this one more time. I don't really want to have to break out my mouse. I don't like my mouse. Okay. Open scene up. Life is good. Yes. Let's go here. Perspective. Open up the hypershade. Good. All right. Let's try this again. So let's graph the wooden table. Let's graph the wooden table. Let's graph the wooden table. Whew. Okay. All right. Everybody happy? Okay. So as I started to say, we want to insert a layer texture in between the file node and the material. So layer textures are found in create, other textures, layer textures. And when you first drop it in, it is not going to be connected to anything in the scene. What we want to do is connect it manually. So easiest way to do this is to take the out color of your file node. And you'll notice on the left, we've got inputs. You want to expand inputs because under inputs, for each layer, right now we've only got one layer, layer 0. For each layer, you've got 4 different inputs. You've got color, alpha, blend mode, visibility. Well, we want to take our color, take the out color of our file node, plug it into the color input of input 0, which is layer 1. Now we want to take our out color of the layer texture and drop that into the base color. Now, if we've done that correctly, you won't notice any difference. But if I select the material, you'll notice now under the base color, I've got a layer texture. So now we've got a layered system set up so we can add the SAL logo on top of the wood. All we've done is insert a layer texture between the file and the material. So here's your file node. Here's your layered texture. And here's your material. Now, we need to add another layer in so we can then put our logo, which is the SAL logo, on top of the table. Pretty simple. Just select your layer texture, or in the viewport, you can click on a table, go to your material. If you want to go to base color, click the input button, there's your layer. So we need to add a new layer. Anybody remember how to do that in Maya? Anybody out there in Zoom? Remember how? So we're looking to add a new layer. To layer texture. Anybody remember? Bao, Derek, Katerina, Janelle, Lauren, Michael, Nicholas, Tyra, Javier, Yangi, Will. Anybody remember how do we add a new layer to a layer texture? All right, nobody took notes. So pretty simple. You really don't have any tools here that say add layer or anything. If you click anywhere in the blank layer texture attribute area, you will create a new layer automatically. To delete layers, you click on the X underneath of the layer icon. We only need one layer. And this one layer actually needs to sit on top of the base layer. So the wood layer, which is the one we've got in here, is really what is your foundation. Everything else we do is going to be on top of it. So how do we move layers? Derek was trying to remember a button. Yeah, I know, it's because we get used to it in Photoshop. But in Maya, it's slightly different. So now we need to move bottom layer, which is the green disgusting lime color. How do we put that on top? We need to move layers. Middle mouse drag. Thank you. That's exactly right, Derek. So we can either middle mouse drag the top layer below the bottom layer, or middle mouse drag the bottom layer in front of the top layer. Remember, top layer is always the leftmost layer. So let's middle mouse drag the bottom, put it right on top. And now we've got a lovely, disgusting lime green color. You say, great, you screwed up my thing. No, not yet. We don't have anything plugged in here. We don't have any blend modes. So now I want to plug my file node, my SAL logo, into this top layer as a projection. So the way you add something to a layer is select the layer itself, go down to the attributes. In this case, it's just a single color swatch. Click on the checker input button. That brings up our old friend create render node. How do we create a layered text, or I'm sorry, a projection? So we want to right click on file and select projection. Thank you, Derek. Yep, that's it. Because if I just left click, it's going to put it in as just a texture map, just UV control. But you have to right click on the word file, go down to create as projection. Now you'll see things like create a stencil, create as texture. That would be just like left clicking, add to favorites. Stencil is basically sort of using an opacity map, kind of like we did with the wine label, only it's Maya and it's much more convoluted and not very friendly to humans. So it's really old school. So create as projection. Now my new network down here in my hypershade looks a little more complicated. You can see my top layer, which is now layer 0, has my projection. So let's plug our file, which is the SAL logo, into my file node. Right here. So let's select the file node. Let's bring the SAL logo in. We'll go into Zen Garden. Right there. There's the SAL logo. Let's hit open. And it shows up as gray, grayish, more like white. And where did our projection go? Well, our projection node, actually, it's the place 3D that's attached to it, because this is what moves the projection, the place 3D. This shows up at the center of the world. So let me go to wireframe. You can see there it is. Anytime you create anything by default in Maya, drops in at the center of the world. Now, what I need to do is make sure that that little pointer, or that little projection normal here, is aimed at the surface I want to project. So right now, I mean, you can see it'll project kind of along the top. It'll throw itself in the front. I need it to rotate and aim down. So I'm rotating it. Looks like it's negative, so negative 90 degrees. There's my SAL logo, actually a bunch of them. So a little big, because I would like this to fit on a board. Because if I look at it in the render cam, yeah, that looks pretty big. I want to look like either child graffiti or somebody just kind of put it there in a marker. So let's scale it. And I want it to fit on one board. So let's go to perspective. Which one of these? Well, it's usually the logo that is right underneath your projection. Right here. So I can throw this anywhere. I could put this over here. I could put that. I'm actually going to try and drop it right here. Scale it down a little more. So you notice it goes through my geometry. Don't really care about that because the camera is not going to see it. So first part, actually second part done. First part was putting a layer texture in. We added a new layer. We put our projection in. Now we need to get rid of all these multiple versions of the logo. Anybody remember how to do that? Multiple copies. We had it with the wine label. We also had it when we were doing the demo of the SAL logo using projection. Turn off wrapping. Exactly right, Derek. Where would I find that at, though? I've got amnesia. I've been on a desert island talking to Wilson, my soccer ball, and coconuts, and I've forgotten where it is. place texture. All right, so it is the place 2D texture that is assigned to the file node right here. So let's turn off wrap U and wrap V. So now we have a single logo. Now we want the background, wherever our logo does not cover the geometry, we want our background to be the same color as the background of our logo, which is white. So this comes from the file node in the attributes down under color balance. So color balance, by default, the color is gray. We want to have the default color change to match the background of the logo. Our SAL logo is white, so we need to change the default color to white. Once we do that, now we can change the blend mode to allow the wood to show up, because right now our wood's there, but it's being covered completely by the layer that the logo's on. So now we need to figure out which blend mode do we need. Which one do we use? Add, multiply? Well, we go through and we figure out we got a white background. We want to remove white, but we want to keep our logo. So for argument's sake, we made our logo 8. So if we look at the equations under add, well, add white right here. If we add the logo, that changes the number. That makes it not black. It changes it. What we want to do is remove white. So white is 1. So down under multiply, 1 times 8 is 8. That means we will keep the black part of our logo, remove the white background. So if you mess up and go add, you'll get exactly the opposite. Notice it removed the black, let the table show through, gave us this kind of milky, washed out look all around it. So let's change that to multiply. So now we've removed the white, kept the black of the logo, and now we want to make our logo look a little bit like it's, worn. It's been absorbed into the wood a little bit. So let's kind of ghost it using alpha. Just drop it down a little. You drop it down too much, it'll disappear. But let's just drop it down a little here. Well, first, let's render and see what it looks like from this point of view. All right, there we go. Let's ghost it a little. Make it look like it's worn. Let's try that. So completely covering the wood, but now letting the wood kind of ghost through. So we can change that if we want it to be a little bit more. Depends on what your requirements are. How worn do you want it to look? Usually you want it to have a little bit of bleed through so it doesn't look so brand new. Yeah, quite frankly, you can do it as little or as much as you want. But just to add a little realism, you really don't want it to look like it's completely covering up the surface. All right, does that make sense? So anybody doing the exterior, if you've already got your table done, there's a way to add a layer texture, add in your projection to your base layer. Now, if we had a solid color instead of wood, the wood texture, you do exactly the same thing. The only difference would be that, you would have a solid color here. So let's say maybe you had bluish, on the table, and solid color, it would still work. And yeah, you don't want to do that. Remember, if you hit delete, you will delete your layer texture, which I just did. So you always want to make sure if you're deleting a layer, click the little button underneath. You will be in for an unpleasant surprise when Maya decides to go south on you. All right, questions? Does that make sense? Right, Tyra's good, Derek's good, thank you. Javier is good. All right. So let's do one more. Let me save this. Let's go into the interior and show you guys how you would do it using metal material. All right, let's set project first. Let's go to the interior. And let's go over to the desk. Well, actually, no, let's keep it in perspective. So let's go over to the desk. And there's our thermos. All right, let me do a save as here. All right. So before I do that, though, let's take a look at the requirements for project 7. So you guys have seen lecture 9 milestone. We went over, you have to have at least one wood grained object, one metal object that you'd made textures for in Substance Painter in your close-up. For lecture 10, you must have at least one projection done in Maya that's visible in your close-up. So in the interior, that could be the AAA logo on the thermos, or in the exterior could be your SAL logo on the table. Now, for those of you that decided that you did your AAA logo or you did your logo on the thermos, in Substance, you still need to put in a projection either on the table or on the wall. So I'm going to show you how to do the thermos if you haven't done it, because the thermos should be brushed metal. So let me select the top and the bottom here. And let's make it brushed metal. So here's our reference. Top and bottom, same anisotropic material, brushed metal, that little ring in the center, that's basically the insert for the cup. That's plastic. And then here's our logo. It's about halfway in the body, projected. And the logo we give you guys when you download it is this. Same thing that's on the thermos. All right, so top and bottom gets a new AI standard material. This will be thermos, brushed metal. And then this will be the thermos plastic ring. Make a new material for that. Just going to call that plastic PR for plastic ring. So now I've got brushed metal and the plastic ring. Let's do the brushed metal first. So in order to make metal, let's get our checklist going here. So there's my reference. Should be pretty simple to follow. And where are we? Thought I took a screen of that. Metal info. No. Okay. I'll just use this. All right. I don't need this to be that big. Well, yeah, I do. Big enough to see it. All right, so find reference, got reference. Find the 0 degree, 90 degree angle of incidence. So let's go into, oh, it's already up here. There we go. What's that look like? Done? All right. Good, so lecture's done, at least the first part of the lecture. So let's go and check out the refractive index. If you don't have it bookmarked, it's in lecture, or it's in lesson 6. So refractive index is right there. That's good. Let's go back to 7. All right. So metal, it's going to be an alloy. Probably going to be under other miscellaneous. So there's your alloys. Permalloy. But if you want to know the specific index of refraction, stainless steel. This company deals with stainless steel. There are the numbers. We don't have stainless steel in the refractive index, but we do have titanium. All right, so let's see, that's titanium. That's a little on the high side, but you'll notice that they measured this using this scale right here, 632.8. And here it's measured with a wavelength here. So what we can do is change it to this, 6.6328. And once I change it to match these numbers, that's, you have to move the decimal over, which is what we did here. But you'll notice that 2.7, 3.7, that's roughly right about what titanium is once it's measured this way. So the wavelength of it. Now, what that means for us is we want to go down here and grab the reflectance. So at 0 degree, this is what our reflectance is, the value that we plug into our material. All right, so we got our reflectance. So we assigned a new material base weight to 1. New material base weight to 1. Metalness is at 1. We plug our 0 degree angle of incidence into the value, which is 0.612. That's right down here. A little bit darker than the standard Arnold. Okay, specular weight to 1, which it already is. Let's go back to the refractive index. What is the 90 degree reflectance? It's 1. It's already 1 here. That's good. Adjust the roughness. Change the base colors. We're not changing the base colors. All we need to do is render it out, see how it looks, and then we can adjust the amount of roughness. So this should give us decent brushed metal. Well, let's test that theory and see. All right, let's, oh, okay, that is disabled, good. Okay, that's good. All right, so there's my brushed metal, but we need to fix it a little. One is we need to add a little more roughness, so let's try 0.3. And we also need to turn on anisotropy. So let's make that like 0.9. And now we need to rotate it so that we get a vertical stretch in our highlights, like we kind of have here. Wow. That's cool, but I don't want that. Stop doing stuff. Jeez. Okay. So let's rotate it 90 degrees, which since it's only 0 to 1 is 0.25. So now we get that nice stretched highlight. So that's kind of our brushed metal. Maybe it could be a little rougher, 0.35. Not much in a way of reflectivity in that plastic. It's kind of rough. So let's make that dark. I want to make it too bad. So let's go down to like 0.2. It's pretty rough. And let's drop some of that reflectivity a little too. Now that actually might be a little on the black side compared to this. So all right, so now we've got our brushed metal material. Now we want to project the AAA logo on it. All right, so that AAA logo is actually going to have to go, base right there. There we go, 0.612. So that's actually going to have to go on a layered texture. Why? Because we need to keep the base color of our metal at 0.612. So I have to remember that. What I want to do is create a layered texture, put my color swatch on there, then I can add my projection. So thermos brushed metal. Let's create a layered texture. All right, so my value is, well, the hue and the saturation. Saturation's off. The hue is going to be white. And the value is going to be 0.612. So that's what I want here. So let's make this 0, make the saturation 0, and make this 0.612. So now I can take the out color of my layer texture, plug it right into my base. If I re-render it, I shouldn't see any difference at all. And I don't. So now, in our layer texture, we need to add a new layer. That layer's got to be on top. This is where we create our projection. So remember, to create a layer, you click on any blank area inside the layer texture attributes. That layer needs to be on top, so you may have to middle mouse click and drag it over. To create a projection, you select your layer, click on the checker button, brings up Create Render Node. We want 2D, and we want to right-click on File and Create as Projection. So now, here's our little network. Inside the File node, this is where we map in our AAA logo, which is right here. So let me hit 6 on the keyboard just to make sure we can see everything. Can't see it? So what we need is to find out where is my projection. Well, my projection is always going to wind up at the center of the world. So normally we would have to bring this over, move it, scale it, rotate it manually. But you guys familiar with bounding boxes from modeling? So you know that in order to describe an object, the actual volume and shape that it takes up in the scene, you can do that with 8 points. Bounding box is basically the area that an object takes up in 3D space. So for example, I could select this mug. Let's zoom in here. And I believe it's under display. Where's it at? Show. Object details. Poly count. No, that's not details. Oh, there it is, under object display bounding box. So now this will show you, right now it's not showing you geometry, it's only showing you the bounding box that it takes up. So that could be for any surface. So for example, this chair right here, show the bounding box of that chair. That's the volume or the shape that the chair takes up. So what we want to do is we want to have our projection, which is right here. We would like it to fit to the bounding box of our thermos right here. So there's the bounding box that our thermos takes up. Now, in theory, this works really well. In practice, not all the time. So the way this works is you select your projection node, which actually is technically the place 3D. In the attributes for the place 3D, you'll see there are 2 buttons, interactive placement and fit to group bounding box. So we want this to fit to that group bounding box. So I'm going to click it and notice that it did not do it. Like I said, this works sometimes. It didn't work for me last month. It worked for me the month before. I've had students say, hey, it works great. It doesn't work all the time. So if you get that, just Z back, and then you will have to translate your projection over there manually, which is kind of annoying, but what are you going to do? It's Maya. All right, so first off, I want to rotate it so that it's aimed at the object. And let's see what we get when we render. Unfortunately, you're only going to be able to see this when you render. So we got a couple things to do. One is we got to make it smaller. That's pretty simple. We can just scale our projector. Second, we've got too many logos. How do we get rid of those extra logos? I know somebody knows the answer. It's going to be connected with the place 2D that's attached to the actual file. Don't forget, we want to turn off wrap U and wrap V. Now you'll notice that we've got a dark area outside of our thermos here. That dark area is caused by the default color. The default color is 50% gray. We want it to match the background to be white. So in the file node of our AAA logo, we take our default color and we turn it to white. Now, what that should do is make everything white, but now it's too bright. It's not the same as our value that we set up in the layer texture. So back here, this is where we use a blend mode. Now we want to get rid of the white background. So we let our brushed metal value show through. What do we need to change it to? Which blend mode? So you go multiply. Well, Javier, let's see, does that work? Yes, it does. What happens if we forget and go the opposite way? We go add. Well, guess what? It gets rid of everything that was black. And now it just keeps the whites. So by default, we're covering up that background, but we want to change it to multiply to get rid of that really bright color and allow the value of our brushed metal to show through. All right, so this is what it looks like without it. Let's keep that. And then this is what it looks like with it. So this is more like the brushed metal we expect. So now our job is almost done. What we need to do is kind of rotate it a little more. And let's actually render it from the camera. There we go. Let's just do this. Let's render it from the camera and let's resize it. Now, I can continue to use the standard, translate rotate, scale tools, or I can go in and use interactive placement, which will kind of let me do all three. So let's scale it down a little bit. It looks a little better. Let's rotate it. If I want to rotate it in this interactive, I click the little diamond down here. Let's rotate that a little. Let's translate it over a little bit. You can drop it down a little bit. So hopefully it matches the reference a little bit better. So it looks like mine is a little stretched vertically. So let's go back here. And let's throw a few more samples in there because that is really getting kind of nasty. So yeah, let's go specular samples. Ray depths, yep, we got good enough ray depths. All right, so much better. It's a whole lot closer to our logo than what we had before. So there is my brushed metal with my AAA logo on it. Now, if you've already done something like this in Substance, so then you either need to put it on the table or on the wall. Right, does that make sense? Questions? Yeah. Be interesting to know where that went. Any questions? Anybody out there in Zoomosphere?
Actually, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I know it says in the requirements, right? So one projection, and then it says two substance painter textures. And then.
Yep, two substance painter textures. One needs to be wood grain, one needs to be metal that you did. If you want to do more, that's fine, but that's the bare minimum.
Right.
And that's for the close-up.
Yeah, I have the interior, so I'm gonna do wood for the table.
Right.
Desk, and then metal. I was gonna do the glass, but I'm like, it's basically already done. So I was thinking the lamp instead, or.
You can do that. You just need reference for whatever you want to do. So as long as you have reference, that's fine. For this, the thermos, like I said, if you did it in Substance, you can do your projection on a table. You could also do it on the wall, like some little kid had a crayon and drew on the wall. So it would be the same, it's the same process that I showed on the others. If it's a solid color, you just need a color swatch, sort of like the thermos for your wall. And then you put the projection on top of it. If you're doing the table, you got a wood table or whatever you have for your table. Usually it's wood. Put a wood table, and then just like with the exterior, you put another layer, put that on top of the wood so the projection sits on the wood. So, I mean, I could do the same thing for a coffee mug stain on the table. Yeah, so what I could do was, I could put my wood table on here. In fact, let me show you. Let me do that.
I was just wanting to make sure that I have the requirements.
Yes. Now, you can do, we recommend like the graffiti, like AAA logo or SAL logo. You can put your initials on there too. I mean, that's in the requirements. So if you want to do your initials, you can. Your initials, you can put your initials. You can add in more if you want to, like for the table. But quite frankly, if you're going to do the table in Substance, you can make sure you bring the coffee mug into Substance too, so you know where to put that water ring or coffee ring stain logically. Make sense?
Yes. And but what I was getting at was the repeatable textures for like the floor or the ceiling or whatever, or the walls. Those aren't required, but it just looks way better with them.
Well, wait, what are you putting on the walls that needs to be
No,
repeatable?
I did the floor. I
Right?
put a repeater on the floor, and I was wondering if like that was required or not. But
No, it's not required. Now, did you just get it or did you make the texture repeatable?
No, I did the whole thing you did. Went to Photoshop, you got the bump map, and then I put both of them in. So it's the texture and then the bump map on top of it.
Okay, but did you make the texture repeatable or did you get a repeatable texture?
I made it seamless.
Okay, what did you do? Wood?
Yeah, like hardwood.
Okay. So did you use the one we supplied or did you get a different one? Okay. So yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yep.
I have reference as well that I'm going to put into the next.
Yeah, definitely get reference for anything you've done, even wear and tear. It's good to have reference because if you're making it up, you generally don't get that kind of freedom on a job. Yep, no, that's a good idea, actually. That's a really good practice is to do the floor. In fact, I mean, there's tons of textures you can get on the floor that necessarily don't need to be repeatable, like those vinyl tiles that I showed. You can search them out. You can get vinyl tiles, just get one of them, crop it, and then when they repeat, they'll line up with each other perfectly like a real tile would. You can also they make parquet floors, little wooden floors with designs on them, and that's repeatable too. So there's a ton of options you can do. All right, so anybody have any questions? Anybody out there in Zoom? Yangi, Javier, Will, Tyra, Nicholas, Michael, Lauren, Janelle, Katerina, Derek, Blaine, Bao, Ion.
No questions from me.
Okay, thank you, Will. Michael was good. Tyra's good. Derek's good. Javier is good. Lauren is good. All right, one other thing I did want to show you is real quick about using this Maya utility called Remap HSV, hue, saturation, and value. So I got a quick slide on that. All right, so we're not going to get to displacements. That's going to take us way off track. So when you get a texture out of the internet, usually you get something that's like super saturated. So what I'm going to do is I've got a red checker texture that I found. Normally I would use it for a tablecloth, but it's the perfect texture for making my chair look like a restaurant. So let's take a look at the actual texture that I found. Interior, here we go. Right here. So that's all fine and well, Doesn't look too bad, but a lot of times when you put it into a scene with the lights you have on there, it can show up as being super saturated. Now, you could take it into Photoshop, kind of guess how much to desaturate it, or you can do it in Maya using a utility. So let me assign a new material to that chair. Chair cushion. Let's go ahead and throw on a file. And bring my tablecloth in on it. There we go. So it's gorgeous. It's exactly what I had in mind when I went to the store. I said, give me that. Now, it's not too bad. Let's render it out, see what we get. You get what you pay for, obviously, because it's free. And that's not perspective. That's perspective. There we go. So we get a couple things going on. One is it's got direct light on it. It's getting pretty blown out there. Can't really see much in the way of detail. So what I'm going to do is lower my base weight. And let's speed this up. So I turn some stuff up. Let's go back to the defaults just to make this flow a little bit quicker. There we go. So let's lower the base weight. How much? Well, let's try 0.9. Good enough. Let's try 0.8. I don't think that's quite enough. Still can't see detail. Let's jump down to like 0.6. You can see it's coming a little bit better. It's still too bright. All right, that looks a little better, but the base weight's fine. But now the color is still overly saturated. That red is really, really hot, really bright. And I don't want that. So what I want to do is, let me let this render again, because I accidentally hit render again. Let's let it finish. We'll do a screen grab, not a screen grab, but we'll keep the snapshot of this render. All right, that works good. Let's stop that. Let's go in and add a utility to our chair to desaturate it. So, very simple. Let me go back to my slide here. So what we have is an input for the remap and an output. Very simply, it works like this. All utilities are under Maya. They're alphabetical, as we learned when we were dealing with the gamma correction and all the others. So let's go down and add in. This is called a remap, so it's under R. Remap, you don't want color, you don't want value, you want HSV. That's hue, saturation, and value. Click on it. You've got an input on the left, output on the right. Guess what? Your color from your file, out color, goes to the input, which is the left side of the remap. The output of the remap, out color, goes to the base color of your material. So now, all we've done is route our file through the remap into the material. Now, by default, it's not going to look any different, but if I click on my material and then click color, there's my remap. Where's my remap go? Well, my remap goes into the file. So the remap is where all the magic happens. You've got hue, you've got saturation, you've got value. So what I can do is, this is basically a line. The bottom left is 0, the top right is 1. There's your saturation is set at the default. So if we lower it, notice what happens in the viewport. We start to lose the color. If I turn it all the way down, now we've got gray. So what I can do is desaturate the color a little bit. So I'm just going to drop it down to like 0.9. So you can see right now where it was really bright and vibrant. Now it's going to be a little bit less. Let's go take it down to 0.8. Yeah, too much. Let's go 0.85. So all we're trying to do is knock down the level of saturation on that file so it's not quite so vibrant, which you get when you've got pure colors, like reds and greens and blues. So there's the original saturation level in the file, and this is desaturated. Now, still too much, you can play with it however you want. But that gives you the ability to desaturate it on the fly. And then if you have to, later on, take it back into Photoshop and redo it if you need to. But this will work for you. So if you're getting a critique from us and we say, hey, you know, that cushion on the sofa is a little too saturated compared to your reference, you can do this, or you can go into Photoshop. Quite frankly, this is a lot easier because you can adjust it on the fly. Now, a couple other things about this node, which can be kind of dangerous, but with, you know, great effect comes great responsibility. You can actually change the color if you want, simply by dragging the slider under hue. So right now, at the 0 or 1, it's going to be red, which is the color that the file was. But as you go through, you can change it. So I can go to purple, I can go to green, I can go to yellow, orange, red. And it's got the same saturation, desaturation level that we had before. So again, I wouldn't recommend this. If you're going to need to change the color, find an actual, texture file that's got the right color, or do it in Photoshop. Photoshop's going to be a lot more accurate, but you can change the color. So again, the hue comes in at 1, which is basically whatever color the file is. In this case, it happens to be red. So at 0 and 1, you have red. Everything else in between, you can change the colors. You can do the same thing with the value. The value at 1, you can make it darker if you want to. I wouldn't personally, because most of the time you spend is trying to make everything pop out. You usually don't want to darken stuff. And adding hue to it's kind of like adding value to it's kind of like adding shadow. But the desaturation portion of this utility is worth the price of admission, honestly. So a lot of times with pure colors in textures, usually a little too saturated, you want to make things look like they're weather worn. They've been worn in, just by use, they've gotten duller. This is a way to do it. All right. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover for you guys. Let's see, we got anything else? Reverse utility, don't really need that. Displacements, we'll get into that on Friday. We've already done that. All right, let's see, one quick review. All right, so for the Zen garden, make sure the table setting is visible for both the close-up and the long shot. It wasn't required in the lighting exercise, but it is required for this. Here's the PDF reference that I said we had for you guys for the Maya versus Photoshop layering system. It's 2 pages. If you go to page 2, here are all the blend modes and what they do. Like I said, the most common blend modes that we use are going to be add or multiply. So like I said, alpha, right there. Javier said for the first part of the recording for lecture 9, it is all just black. Okay, let's see that and hope that's not true. First part of the recording, here we go. Click on that.
Lecture 9.
Oh, lecture 9, first part. There we go. Oh, I think Tony Bagsby had a problem. I think he addressed that in lecture. There you go. So yeah, it's just about 20 minutes. What's that? Yeah, from Monday. So like the first 20 minutes, I think he had a problem. So if you have any questions, you can always ask him. He'll be here Friday. So if anybody wants to hit him up for some more substance stuff, definitely do that if you need to see anything else. Anybody have any questions before we go on break? All good? All right, thank you. Let me grab a final screen for attendance. Make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, Derek is all good. Thank you, Derek. Michael's good. Good to keep working. Awesome. All right, let's close this. Ion's good. Let's close this. Let's save that. All right, so let's go to lunch and come back at, well, let's come back at 10 or 11:45. So let's see, it'll be 10:45. We'll get out of here. Come back at 11:45 for lab. And there will be no campus lab. There will be just a Zoom lab because Jackson has to go to the doctors, and he'll be back in for the Zoom session. So just to let anybody know, if anybody was planning on coming in, just the Zoom lab for today. So I won't be in on Friday. I'll be out of the office tomorrow and Friday. Hope you guys enjoyed the course. Stop in, see us once in a while. Let us know how you're doing. You guys will always be on our Discord, although we will change your status from current student to past. So you'll still have like most of the, you'll have all of the channels that are available to you, except the ones to post like final project in. So if anybody needs permission to post for the final project, the lecture or the lesson 7, which is project 7, in the SAL, forget what's the name of the server? No, the server is SAL, but we have a separate Discord channel for I think it's final project showcase, something like that. And that's where you basically will do kind of what you're doing in critiques, only it's not for critiques. It's the final upload that you sent to us as a PNG, and just kind of put up a quick blurb about what you learned, what would you do different, that kind of stuff.
It's an assignment on it, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
the course wrap up. So it's under there.
I saw it, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you reminded me. Yeah, it is under there. That would be really good.
Yeah,
Right here. So yeah, final project showcase. That's what it's called in Discord. So just post your template as a PNG, get a brief description, discuss how you think it turned out, what you learned. You can do a postmortem on it. Hey, knowing what I know now, after having gone through it, I would do this different. And the whole idea is a little bit of a self-reflection on it. All right, guys. So have a good break, and we'll see you back here for lab at 11:45.